Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Got a little bit of a weekend video here for you. We're doing some maintenance on the 150. I like to try and get a maintenance video out every weekend, but who knows? With how many videos I'm making these days, the schedule, it's kind of fast and loose, so be sure to hit the subscribe button down there so that you get updated on any of the videos coming out. Now this 150-gallon freshwater aquarium is becoming a little bit of a chore to take care of. Now, that's not a bad thing because if this was kind of my intention. I'm really kind of pushing the limits with how many different plants I have in here. We've got the guppies in here now. They're doing quite well. Things are going pretty well as far as the fish and as far as the shrimp go. Most things are doing pretty well. Although with the plants, we are ending up kind of running the razor's edge here of either too much fertilizer or not enough fertilizer, maybe falling short on CO2, that kind of stuff. So I am kind of having to really make adjustments and really keep an eye on it. Otherwise, I'm ending up with a little bit of staghorn algae and a little bit of hair algae, which more often than not, I manually remove and then just kind of adjust my schedule a little bit. Whereas I maybe was doing, like, let's say, for instance, I was doing 7 pumps of Easy Green or something, right? Maybe I go like, all right, let's try 5 and see where we're at there. Let's do a water change and then see where we're at, you know. So it's all pretty basic maintenance. I'm not really doing anything that's like super high tech or way out there in the world, like freaking people out or anything. Most everything I'm doing is pretty normal. Just cleaning, water changes, maintaining the filter, media, that kind of stuff when it becomes overly clogged or whatever. And other than that, it's pretty much planting, trimming, replanting, trimming, and just continuing going that route. To be honest with you, I have not counted how many species I have going in this aquarium, but it's getting pretty high. It's getting up there. I think last time I counted, it was like 38 or 42 or something like that. At some point, I'm going to do a count when it comes time to change the tank. I think is when I'm really going to do the exact count and figure out what's going on. But pretty much everywhere you look in this aquarium, you can see a different plant, different species. You know, maybe it's the same genus, but you know, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different kinds of Ludwigia in here, right? It gives you an idea that like a lot of them, maybe they're from the same genus, but we got different varietals that you know, can probably fall within the same parameters, but still offer a really different look and really different growing pattern, even though you know, it's the same genus, right? First things first, every Pogostemon's got to get trimming today. Except for the Samsonii, it's doing well. Pogostemon erectus got to get trimmed. Pogostemon stellatus definitely got to get trimmed. It's become a big old bush, a plant bush. I mean, you know? Pogostemon stellatus octopus grows like crazy in this aquarium, and I'm probably gonna have to replant it again soon. So we're definitely ending up with a lot of the little stumps with all the little side shoots down here, and we're definitely going to be losing our ability to maintain this kind of shape to the overall plants, to the overall, you know, scape for this plant. Trying to make this sort of wispy effect over here. Eventually it's just gonna gain so much volume that it will no longer have this kind of wispy look, and it'll eventually just be a big clump of it, which is fine. It actually looks really cool that way. It just isn't going to work for what I want. I want it to accent the erectus back here, which is making itself into a big clumpy bush anyhow. So I don't want 2 of that. I want 1 and 1, basically. But as I trim the stellatus back, it eventually it sends out so many side shoots that I end up having to pull all the roots out and then replant the individuals so they'll do the effect that I want here. After we move all those, or trim all those plants, notice that we've got a little hair algae showing up in here. To get out our little trusty toothbrush, you know, treating the water column and getting the tank healthy is the best method to get rid of hair algae. But if you're looking to get rid of it quickly, do manual removal and balance your water. So this isn't the only way I get rid of hair algae, but I certainly don't use any algicides or anything like that for hair algae. It will typically, with some manual removal, get your water change in, make sure that your fertilizers are at the level that you want them to be, make sure that your CO2 is working properly and at the level that you want that, and typically the plants will outcompete hair algae. I don't get that stressed out about hair algae personally. I know a lot of people do, but personally, the algae that is kind of stressing me out right now is the staghorn that is showing up where I have a little too much light. And with the hardness of the water, it's almost guaranteed that that's just going to keep happening. So that's a problem, because it's pretty rare that my tanks ever have staghorn, and it means I've got an abundance of something from these rocks, and I can't at this point adjust the light because I have too many species of plant in here, so I can't just like tone down the light and hope for the best, you know, on that stuff. And I could rescape the tank and move and kind of relocate everything so it's not in so much direct light. But that's really where the staghorn is showing up, is where direct light is hitting the Sierra stone, plus the hardness of the water now. So a little bit of a pain because I need the hardness of the water for the guppies, right? And I don't really feel like moving the stones at this point. I'm pretty happy with where the stones are, so I don't really want to move those either. But push come to shove, we're gonna have to pull these rocks out and move them around. But I'm trying to avoid that. I'm trying to avoid it at all costs, realistically. Our next little task here is to find all the Pogostemon erectus, which is growing weird. Oh, well, sorry. Growing weird is not really a great description of what's going on. But as you can see here, you end up losing a lot of the leaves down on this part of the stem here once it starts to get too tall. And once it gets tall, it actually sends out these little side shoots that will essentially take up the space of this. And admittedly, I don't like to do this very often because this is something that I will notice. This little stump right here, I'm going to notice that for the next couple of weeks. Because what I'd rather do is something like this down here, trim this one out, right? And then replant this portion, this new fresh bit. But I don't think I can even fit down in there right now with how tight this is. So sometime soon-ish, I'm going to have to probably disassemble this middle piece of plants and replant all this. I'm not quite there yet, and the reason for that is simple human nature. I'm really enjoying being able to check out this clump of plants and come in and stare at it for 10 minutes. So It's kind of a selfish reason why I'm not going to do that yet. It's literally just because I'm enjoying it, you know. And then I've got these ones going up here at the back that are just up at the top. Now the lucky thing with this, I actually trim this one. I think it's just this one, isn't it? There's that one. Oh, I was right, but I was wrong. Okay. I trimmed it, but there was so much root going on, the dang thing wouldn't want to come out. Just fine. You can get that out of there. Little roots back here grabbing onto stuff. Alright, so we have that one and that one looking fairly good. Kind of flopping around. And then there's this one right back here and the one next to it. This one I'm actually just going to pull the whole one out because it keeps just growing all the way up to the top. So trim that, and then I think that looks fairly good for a little trim. And I think this one's got to come out too. Kind of crowding in this Alternanthera renekii back here. Nice looking red behind the green. So we're just gonna let that happen for a little while. All right. Tail looks fairly good. It'll kind of fluff back out here in just a second. And all right, moving on. Moving on up, moving on up. So our next plant here, we got to get trimmed back, is the Rotala atra. It has been a little bit since I trimmed this back, but I've been going at it so fairly aggressively that it is kind of working out at this point that it's more or less staying where I want it to be. I say more or less because it is kind of a 50-50 thing going on. I'm getting an abundance of run from right here and right here. So that's kind of, that's at least the shape I'm looking for. Aha! So here's some of that algae I was telling you about. A real pain in my butt. It's just mushy.
Alright. Either way, I gotta keep trimming. Can't worry too much about a little bit of staghorn growing on this rock. Worst case scenario, I can always just pull that rock out and clean it off. I mean, I don't want to be in the worst case scenario though, you know? So try to avoid it as much as possible, but also at the same time I always try to tell people, like, it's basically inevitable that you will encounter some algae, and the best practices are just doing your maintenance, keeping up with maintenance, and you'll see results and things will work out. Like, nothing is ever really too far gone, you know? You never really get to that point where anything is just so far out of whack, you know, especially if you still got plants growing and stuff. Like, it's not that far off. Now I've got a little bit of this rotella down here, and I don't want it down there. I can't get it with my hand, so I gotta go with some tongs, or little pincettes, I guess, whatever people call them, whatever you feel like calling them. You call them tongs, pincettes, whatever. It's all good. few more things to trim here. Sometimes you gotta step down and take a look from the front. It's easy to kind of get hung up looking at the top down. So if you don't happen to have the little pincers, almost every plant in an aquarium can be, I mean, I don't know, maybe you have like not very strong fingernails or something, but most every plant in an aquarium can get trimmed just by pinching it against your thumbnail with your pointer finger.
We've got a little bit of an issue right here. This Cryptocorini wendetii is encroaching too forward to this area over here. So I'm actually gonna have to pull some of it out to clear out some space. But this Cryptocorini, I would 100% recommend to anybody. Get some of it. It fills in these areas. It looks really cool. Right? I think it looks cool.
Ultimately, I think what I'm going to be doing over here is pulling out some of this crypt because it's just spreading into everything again, which is fine. I mean, that's what it's going to do. Like, that's what I was born to do. Sometimes you gotta kind of dig around and find the right one to pull first so you can see what you're doing. It's so thick down here though. So when you're pulling out crypts like this that are really packed into an area, the best thing to do is to kind of move it around a little bit until you can find a specific one. Then you can dig down a little bit and pull it out, the individual plant, right? See that little, this is a little tiny one, but you want to do that little individual plant like that, because you don't want to just thrash these plants, dig around in here, and then send a bunch of substrate flying around and you're clouding up the tank. You know, that's not enjoyable. So each little one, you can find its little base there and then pull it out. Sort of like how when you're pulling out weeds in your garden, that you gotta kind of loosen it up and pull the whole thing out and get its roots. So I guess that's a good analogy. It's like pulling weeds in the garden. Although these are much more enjoyable than weeds in the garden, I'll tell you that. I don't know what this is. Yeah. That's what it is. I was wondering what I was feeling down in there, and it's a snail shell. I guess I might as well tell you guys what the main plan is here with pulling out some of these crypts. If I make some space on this side of this rock here, oops. See, I broke that one. That's no good. You don't want to do that. But if I make some space on the side of this big stone here, it'll give me, I think, enough space that I'll probably add in a little bit of substrate. And then I think what I'm going to do is move the Ludwigia arcuata over here. I think this is going to be a much better spot for it. It being right next to the Rotella atra is kind of meh, you know? But you know, that's all just a reality that we all got to deal with. That sometimes you just gotta relocate plants, move them around. Found a bulb. Lotus bulb. Cool. Yep. I am going to have to pull all the Pocostemon because it's got Crips mixed in with it. Alrighty. Not today though. I don't have time today. Working against the clock right now. Gonna have daddy duty here soon. All right. Yeah, I think we got it.
Yeah. Looks about right. So, I don't know where am I? Oh. So the last little bit that I have to do here is add in some substrate into that little space that we cleared out all the crypts moving back. And we need to add in just a little bit of substrate there to bring the level up so that we're ready to add in the next plant, which will be not today. So stay tuned. We'll be doing that fairly soon. Use my old paintbrush here, which is nothing fancy. It is not an aquascaping tool. It's literally an old paintbrush. I think it costs 50 cents. Add in that little substrate in there. Clean that up a little bit. We got a root sticking out over here. Hold on. I think the first plant that's going to move is this spiralis here. I'm going to put it right in the back. And then we're going to put some Ludwigia in the front. Ludwigia. All right. Well, that's working pretty good. I think that looks nice, and I think it'll be ready for the next little bits of plants going in there. All right. That's it for today. Thanks for coming in. Fight the robots. Hit the buttons. Later.